Dear authors and invited guests, good noon and welcome to a technical session 1A. Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of Team ICT4SD and Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to everyone in the 6th International Conference on ICT for Sustainable Development. It's ICT4SD 2021. And we all are very thankful to everyone who present on this digital platform, go along with us digitally and in this unpredictable circumstances of COVID-19. In this time and making this conference more effective and productive. Also, we wish everyone for their families, for their protected time, and we all will together pass this soon. Now, I would like to invite our session chair, chairing this session, Ms. Neha Tiwari, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Richa. Thank you.
Neha Tiwari, ma'am. Just a minute. Dr. Neha Tiwari, she's Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science and IT at the IIS University, Jaipur, India. She has a more than 16 years of teaching experience and her research interest is computer programming database, SQL, VBs, CAD networking, Linux, Oracle, Java operating system. Welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
And there's a one special note for everyone. In this session, we have a 8-minute for presentation and 2 minutes for question answer. After 7 minutes, I will raise a gentle reminder to finish the presentation. Now we can start our first presentation. Yogesh Gohar is presenting on paper is effective strategy. Wait a second. Effective strategy to manage road traffic using big data analytics. Yogesh, please, you may start your presentation.
Is the presentation visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. I will just turn off my video because due to network issue, it may end up using a lot of energy. So today I'm here to present. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
So my topic for today's presentation is strategies for smart road traffic management system using big data analytics. And two of us are presenting this paper. The first one is, my name is Yogesh Gohar. Another one is Dr. Miss Monali Sagar Madam, and we are both associated with Yeshwantrao Chauhan College of Engineering, Nagpur. These are my content, that is aim, proposed contribution, and verification and validation, existing systems and technologies, advantages of my research, conclusion, and references. So the basic idea behind this is how we are going to collect and create the road traffic data. As when I have visited many of the road traffic, what we can say, officers, they have straight away rejected my proposal. So I have standard on the road and squares to collect the data. I have used Hadoop and HDFS. Then I have tried to define and implement the algorithm for vehicle detection, classification, vehicle speed identification, road traffic analysis, congestion detection. This is what I have proposed. Then we have gone for vehicle registration process. Then defining the 4 strategies that we are working on, that is congestion status, toll tax collection, fine collection, and finding the shortest path. This is just what we can say phase 1. We have more phases coming up. Then we have presentation of strategies on map and verification and validation of the model as well as for the data. So what I'm going to creation and pre-processing, that is creating the database in real-time environment. We have developed a road traffic information system for on the basis of number plate and well as on the type of vehicle. To detect a vehicle, we have used R cascade algorithm, and this system is there for vehicle counting and classification as well. Now this is the proposed method where we have a camera on a height. Now what is the issue with the cameras that are been running? They are running there, but they are not being analyzed. There has to be a 24/7 person behind the camera to work on it to analyze the data. This is a completely automated system where no one has to sit behind the camera to analyze the data. Now this is the image that you can see on the screen. It allows you to capture the information of the road traffic. Now this is the sample that I have for my proposal. This is for lane 1, lane 2, and this is for the 2 lane. So sorry. Okay. Now this is the vehicle detection algorithm that I have used. This is a very simple and a very effective method of using it. Then after vehicle detection, I have categorized the vehicle into 4 different categories. That is, one is 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler, and more than 4 wheelers. That is multi-axle. Then this is the vehicle type and count algorithm. So how we have initialized the count and how we have tried to implement. So this is now this is the basic idea of how I have tried to find out the this is a car, this is a bike. So we have tried to take a length from x1 y1 to x1 y2, and then we have tried to find the centroid, and we have just tried to identify the length of the system. So you can see that centroid formula is there. Let centroid of rectangle as c, then c is equal to x1 and y1. So this x1 y1 is this point, and w2 and h2, that is height and width of the vehicle. Now this is the video vehicle detection and classification algorithm. So what I have already proposed, this is there in the terms of this. So you can see that if area of rectangle is less than 10,000, it is classified as bike or a small vehicle. If the area of rectangle is between 10,000 to 17,000, it is termed to be as car or LMV. If the area of rectangle is greater than 17, so it will be classified as truck, buses, and many more things. So this is vehicle segmentation and detection output. So this is how I have tried to detect, and this is the segmentation, and this is the actual output. So now next thing is, as we are working on fine correction system, so it is very important to work on the speed of the vehicle, because many of the accidents happen due to speed of the vehicle, due to intense speed of the vehicle. Especially on the highways, the speed is very high. So we have just with the same paradigm, we have coming up centroid, getting it further in the video frame. We have just tried to frame the algorithm for the speed of the speed identification of a vehicle. So this is how I have classified the vehicle in terms of speed. 0 kilometers per hour is standstill, 0 to 25 is slow moving, 26 to 50 is normal moving, 51 to 75 is fast moving, and above 75 is very fast moving. Now this can change, or this can be altered as per the capacity of the road. If the road is 4 lane or 6 lane, so this can be changed. If the road is only 2 lane, then this has to be lowered. And now this is one of the square that I have tried to take in. Now the most important area that I have worked on is congestion detection, where the vehicle, if now actually I have taken the actual speed of the vehicle and the running vehicle speed that I have received from the inputs from various videos, then finding the average speed of the vehicle out of the total vehicles. Means for last 5 minutes, how many vehicles are there and what is the condition. Now why I have done this? Just to identify that is the network is in the standstill mode or is it in the running mode. So just to do that, I have done this. This is the Hadoop area. Now you can see that the speed 60, congestion status is smooth, traffic level, and congestion degree is 0.75, congestion percentage is 70. So this is how I have classified above 75 and 51 to 75. that is 0 to 0.25, there is no congestion available, and later on the congestion is increasing if the vehicle is stand still. But in this case, if the vehicle is stand still but other vehicles are moving, so in that average out, that vehicle will be moved up. So we have tried to take care of that also. Then what are the various strategies that we have defined? Is we have defined 4 strategies, that is congestion status using congestion degree, toll tax collection, fine collection system, and strategy shortest path between 2 locations. So before going to that, we are supposed to work on vehicle registration process. So I have done this charting done, owner details, vehicle details, and amount deposited. Now what every vehicle has to be registered by the RTO every year, and they have to pay a fixed amount of cost, for example 5,000, 10,000 to the RTO, and it will be remain in the deposit of RTO. It is just like a prepaid card. If you cross a toll, it will be directly deducted from your account. If you do any malfunction on the road, or if you do any malpractices on the road, it will be directly deducted from your account. So there will, and you will receive an SMS on your mobile, registered mobile, to the owner. Now this is the flow. So vehicle registration process, fine collection system, a toll tax collection system, types of fine collection, receipt generation, toll tax detection, details, toll tax as per government guidelines. So if they are changing, so this can be changed, and receipt generation again. So this is my this is a rough layout how I'm going to collect the toll tax.
Dear presenter, you have last 1 minute.
Yes, ma'am. Then we have the fine collection system the same way. In this case, we have only dealt with overspeeding, and this is the representation of the same thing on the map. Now this is, you can see the shortest path. I have done the video for the same. Now validation and verification of the model as well as for the data. Currently I'm showing it for the data. Now I have taken the confusion matrix for the same, that is true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. This is the status, and accuracy, precision, recall, and I have done a sample calculation here. Misclassification, sensitivity, and specificity. These are my analysis. This is my system, that is smart road traffic management system, and I have compared this with traditional system, sequential programming, and map reduce traffic traffic violation detection system, and I have got better results, out of which I'm showing it on the graph. And these are the existing disadvantages of the system. For example, Google Map, if you're taking, this is working completely on crowdsourcing, and it is not providing any kind of issue. What we can say, if I put 100 mobiles on a road, so it will show that it is a congested area. It is not providing me any kind of real-time environment. Neither NMC nor RTO is able to use that Google Map for their own usage. They have to pay if they want to use it. Advantages of my project is monitoring the status, real-time status, optimizing the road users. For example, if there is a congestion, so the information will be given to the user and it can be diverted. Number plate is mapped with the electronic system, so you don't need to have any kind of thing called as FASTag or anything else. You just have to pay the registration charges, and that's all. You are free to run in the city. The improving the safety and efficiency. These are my references. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Yogesh. Now I ask to our session chair. Ma'am, any questions?
Yeah, Yogesh, I just want to ask you about the data collection mechanism. Like, how have you been able to collect the data for it?
For that, I have manually done it, all the data collection, because the RTO officials have completely denied me to provide any kind of data. So everything has done manually. And the thing I have shown you, I have tried to implement this for my data collection. You can see on the slide, traffic information collection. This is my proposed method. This is already there onto the squares and signals, but they are not allowing me to that data. They are not allowing me the
No,
reach
I'm
to
just
that data.
asking you. Yeah, I got your point. So the system has already been established. You are not establishing your system for your research work, right? So
System is established, but system is not automated. The system is currently running on manual line itself.
no, that is fine. Like you must have kept some area, specific area in your mind that I'll be covering this much area for my research work, right?
Yes, ma'am.
There
The
should be some
areas,
kind of, yeah, you've already done that, right? So
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
just
These are the
asking that, like, how have you got the permission even to, set up the camera or, extract the data out of the available information which is already there? And
ma'am.
one more thing I would like to highlight, like, don't you think that your work is a bit dispersed? Like, I mean, it's scattered. You
Yes,
have
ma'am.
not converged your work, streamlined your work. I would say. So
Ma'am,
don't you
this
think
is
it's?
yes, ma'am. I do agree with that. Actually, this work was given to me by my guide itself. First thing. Second thing, this work is scattered in 4 to 5 phases. This is just one of the phase. This has to be streamlined again. The complete system has to be packed into one system, and then only it can be delivered to the end user and to the RTO officials as well. Still, we are working on 2 to 3 phases more onto it. Once it is completed, we will be packing up into one system and then we will release it.
Yeah, but for research purpose, you have to start from a specific direction, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You just take some specific element of this, and such type of work has already been done. Yeah, like it's been done a lot. People are doing a lot in this area. So, what innovation do you think your work can bring?
Ma'am, my work is straight away talking about the data analytics that is not being used currently in the RTO system. First thing. Second,
That is
I just
fine,
want
but
to remove
yeah,
the
that
FASTag
is
system that
uh-huh.
is again used once we have the number plate, that is unique number plate system we have all over India. So I just want to remove that FASTag system, and I just want to have that fine collection system is not proper in India. So once this system is implemented, the fine collection system will be again streamlined, because overspeeding is one of the most frequently done, and signal jumping and all that things are done very frequently, and no fine has been done. If the RTO person is busy with some end, the another person will try to jump the signal. So this system will caught everyone. Something
I hope
that
you
is
are the only research scholar involved in this work. It's no more
yes,
a collaborative research work,
currently
right?
it is not
So
collaborative, but I'm trying hard to get the collaboration.
I
Sorry.
got your point. Yeah, but there is just a suggestion. Like if you want to sum up your work in time, in this stipulated time of your research, I
Yes,
would give 2 suggestions to you. One is not to be, over ambitious regarding the domain, and converge your work
yes,
as much as possible. Just take a smaller portion of it, and like try finishing off your research work as early as possible. That is
yes,
very much required in this, and then you can take it up as a collaborative
okay,
research work in
yes.
your future
I will
plans. Yeah,
definitely work on to it.
yeah.
Yes,
Good luck to you. Thank you.
thank you.
Now I would like to invite our next presenter, J.N. Swaminathan, for presenting his paper on analysis of ECG signal processing for smart medical technologies.
Thank you so much, Richard. Shall I share the screen?
Yes, sir, you may start your presentation.
Whether my screen is visible to you?
Yes.
Okay, very good afternoon to all participants and respected chairperson and coordinator. So this is a, analysis review paper which I have done on ECG signal processing for next smart medical technology. Myself, Dr. J.N. Swaminathan, professor from QAS College of Engineering Technology, Andhra Pradesh. My co-authors are Mr. Ramesh Kumar from Madanapalli, Mr. I. Vidyasagar from Rice Krishna, Ongole, and Ms. I. Vidya from Geetanjali, Andhra, and Mr. R. Navneetha Krishnan from KCT College of Technology, Coimbatore. So here in broader perspective, what is the need for ECG signal processing in general broader perspective? Human bodies always constantly generate the signal so that we can able to extract the information from the human body. So what are the types of signal from the signal? What are the information we can able to get is like blood pressure, hemoglobin, levels in the blood, brain activities, heart function, etc. So this can be measured in invasive manner or non-invasive manner. So signal processing, biomedical signal processing plays a major role in medical technology to diagnose the disease and to provide a solution for the cure. So this is that's why I have took this one, because in COVID we have seen lots and lots of med devices, new med devices invention has been done. So that is the motivation for this particular survey. So in general block, how the signal has been extracted from the human body. So the input will be taken, the input will be the sensors which will be attached in the human body, and the signal acquisition will be done using the sensor. The main problem is here, the challenge for the sensor is the noise. The noise level voltage will be very high when compared to the actual signal which we need to be extracted. So here we need to design the sensors in a proper manner for a well-made signal processing. Another one thing is signal transformation we need to carry out. So that is the main thing. Next, the transformed signal will be going to the for signal classification, whether the patient is normal or abnormal. Those signals will notify you whether actually whether the particular patient is normal or abnormal. So that is the important thing. Here in signal acquisition, we are converting the signal from analog to digital. Once again, the quantization noise plays a major role. And here in transformation, here we are transforming the signal for our for in word form in our required form. So when I am finding the research gaps which are there in this particular survey, the signal obtained from the human body will contain noise. The noise level will be more, whereas the raw data, the signal strength will be less. So this is the major disadvantage. So in the direct diagnosis purpose, in order to make it as a useful, the signal should be filtered and we need to remove. So here the filter design, in signal processing, filter design plays a major role to minimize or to negate the noise, and we need to amplify the particular signal which is getting sensed. So another one important survey which has been taken is the growth of elderly population is expected to increase around 56% by 2030 and to 2050. So this is one important identification which I have seen in this particular research. I feel this is need of our where we need to produce more number of smart ECG components in this. So the main objective in this review, application of signal processing, particularly in ECG medical technologies, has been analyzed and discussed. The method and algorithm to overcome the ECG noises has been discussed. So the improvement of those technologies for better human healthcare is also has been analyzed. So here, when I am taking a signal, here in terms of determine, I am classifying the signal as periodic, quasi-periodic, and transient. And in general format, I am classifying the signal as stationary and non-stationary. So here especially in biomedical signal processing, here classification of signal is very, very important. Whether we are dealing with a periodic signal or quasi-periodic or transient, and side away for communication purpose, whether that is a stationary signal or a non-stationary signal. Then, so what are the biomedical signals which I am going to deal with? So in general, I am going to speak first. So biomedical signals are categorized into two types, as an action potential and event related potential signal. Here ECG, EEG and EMG are action potential, whereas other signals such as speech signal, phonocardiogram and catheter sensor signal and vibroorthogram are categorized as event related potential. So here biomedical signal, now my limitation here I have analyzed only for ECG. Here ECG signals were mostly used by diagnosing many applications such as not only for cardiovascular problem but also for sleeping apnea, emotional and rhythmias reduction. So here what I have done is my here I have analyzed this PQRST waves, that is the peak detection, where in medical field it is very common, where we have to detect PQRS complex and T wave and U wave. Most of the ECG measurement requires signal processing to clean up and provide real ECG signal in order to get clear data. So,
Dear presenter, you have last 1 minute. Please conclude your presentation and speed up your presentation.
Yeah. So there are two types of ECG signals here which I have analyzed. Only is ECG noises. What are the different possibility of ECG noises and signal for ECG measurements? So here ECG noises. Here what are the things which I have done? I have categorized into three as baseline wander and abrupt drift, power line interference, which is normally due to the power plug, and muscle artifacts. So due to the body muscle artifacts, it may come. So here baseline wander occurs due to the skin electrode, because even due to the non-proper fixing of the sensor also, and respiration poor electrode, that is poor sensor contact, will cause these types of noises. Whereas the PLI, the low frequency component present were mixed with the ECG signal, distorts the entire ECG. So whereas muscle artifacts, here muscle artifacts will majorly distort and it will degrade the signal. So here next thing I am have done in ECG measurements, where I have two different types of measurement in terms of quality index and efficiency in measuring this PQRST signals. So these are some of the ECG measurements I have taken. So in each and every survey, the efficiency they have mentioned has been improved, but the signal accuracy, whenever we are using poor electrodes, the efficiency is getting reduced. So these are my analysis. So I have took only 7 papers for tabling, but actually around 30 papers have been taken for the survey. So in RPK extraction, the performance is good. The RPK extraction, the performance is good. And the QRS complex, it is good. For in the second paper, PQRST shape, it is clean and contaminated. And for in fourth paper, the QRS complex is in the region of conversion, whereas in fifth and sixth, it is somewhat good and bad due to the design. The third noise plays a major role. In seventh paper, classification of spectrum is also there. So in conclusion, there is a day-by-day increase of cardiac problems posed the human being to monitor their heart function regularly. In this busy life, it is difficult to visit the hospital and labs every day to monitor their health. So there are lots and lots of technologies that help people to take care and using their handy devices. So the ECG noise and their characteristics has been, I feel it has been well discussed. So yeah, proposed a new innovation proposed algorithm has been done, and the work has been going on. The once the work has been finalized, the paper will be published. The extended paper will be published in a further ACI journal. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Swaminathan. So how long has it been for you to get enrolled in your PhD?
Myself, I have enrolled on 2012 and I finished it in 2017.
Okay, so it has already been done, and are you discussing your work with us? Is this so?
No. I have not discussing this. This is not my PhD work. This is the new work which I have taken for integrating for smart med devices using 5G technology.
All right. So whatever you have discussed, I think that this is an analytical paper, right?
Yeah.
So you have discussed whatever you have reviewed from various papers, as you said, the number was 30, right?
Yeah.
So have you implemented something of your own?
No. These
Till
are
now?
my surveys. These are my surveys. The implementation is now going on. That's what I have told you.
Yeah, so that's a kind of analytical paper, and all the
novelty method is now has been going on.
so that's basically a kind of analytical paper, and whatever inferences you have drawn in the end, that is in the last slide, was entirely based on the analysis that you have done so far, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So I don't think that there is much left to ask you in this, because that's the it's just the beginning of the work that you do. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. I just have a small question and a request for the coordinator. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Actually, another next presenter, Dr. Aradu Meenakshi, is not available now.
Okay.
Can I present on behalf of her?
But in the list, I can see her name.
Where in the participant list?
Yes, in the participation list.
No problem. Because I called her numerous times, she has not responded. Then okay, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It is a very excellent arrangement. Thank you so much. Thank you, chairperson also.
Pleasure.
Now I would like to invite our next presenter, Algu Meenakshi, for presenting her paper on analysis of future 5G wireless sensor network.
Yeah, Richa, I would like to ask her something before she starts with the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
No, let her start and then I'll ask.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon, one and all present here.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So
Can I-
Meenakshi, I just want to, yeah, Meenakshi, this is Neha, Dr. Neha Tiwari, the chairperson, the session chair of the session. So there's just one question to you before you start with the presentation. Do you have your work in collaboration with Mr. Swaminathan, who has
Yes,
just
yes, ma'am.
ended his presentation? All right. So is it a kind of extension of it, or you are again,
Actually,
going to? Yeah.
It is a review paper, ma'am. So we together we have reviewed the algorithms for the wireless sensor networks, which will be suitable for 5G communication.
All right. Go ahead.
Can I share my screen, ma'am?
Yeah, sure, you can.
Whether my screen is visible, ma'am?
Yes, your screen is visible. Please start your presentation.
Good afternoon, one and all present here. This is a pleasure for me to present a review paper on the wireless sensor network. That is, what are all the algorithms that will be suitable for the future 5G wireless sensor networks is the objective of this particular paper. When coming to this wireless sensor networks, we initially must understand what are the benefit of wireless sensor networks and what are the
Meenakshi, you can
shortcomings
please,
and what are
skip
the
this part.
applications.
Meenakshi, please skip
Okay.
this introductory part and come to the exact analysis that you've done.
Okay, that is fine, ma'am. Thank you. Coming to this basic block diagram, I will take only half a minute. That is, an end user is going to receive a particular signal from the information that is collected by various sensor nodes through the connection of internet, that is from the basic sensor nodes which are collected. That information will be transmitted to the base station, and from the base station the information can be taken to the end user in various applications which we were experiencing in our day-to-day life. The main research gaps which we have identified regarding this wireless sensor networks have been listed here. That is, in any wireless sensor network, the important problem arises due to the memory limitations, security, battery issues, bandwidth, and computing. And various research works are going on to overcome these problems in our real-time life we are looking into. And there must be a proper balance between the should be maintained between the data which has been processed and the information being communicated. So when we are doing this data processing and communication, we must avoid the system complexity. So the research gaps in these areas are taken into account, and I have mainly concentrated upon collecting the algorithms which are used for providing energy efficient low power wireless sensor network communication. So in order to create identify the gap between the practical and theoretical achievements which has been carried out in the wireless sensor networks and their applications for the various engineering field have been discussed in this paper. And the main aim of this paper is to focus on the future perspectives of 5G communication, which can be used for wireless sensor network. That is the main task taken to control. And here you could see a basic block diagram of wireless sensor network, which will be known to all of us already. Here you could see the various sensor inputs which are taken from the sensor node, and it has been conditioned. The signal from the sensor is conditioned and given to the multiplexer, and the digitized signal is fed to the microcontroller, and this information can be later on transmitted through your transceiver, and the transmission and reception is carried out wireless way in any wireless sensor node. And coming to the basic architecture, this also is known to all of us that we have 5 different layers: physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, and the application layer. Here we can say that the application layer will be concentrating on the software which is needed for connecting the queries that is associated with the communication of the particular network. And the delivery layer and the network layer, that is the transport layer and the network layer, will take care of the routing function and delivery of the data exactly from one end to the another end. So for this particular layer only, we were going to discuss the various types of algorithms which can be used for effective delivery. And apart from that, avoiding collision will be taken care by the MAC layer, that is your data link layer, and the basic encryption, modulation, and the data communication will be taken care of the physical layer. And here the planes are 3 different planes available. One is the power management plane, separately for managing the power, and the mobility management plane for when the sensor nodes are going to be a mobile sensor node, that will be taken care of this mobility management plane. And task management plane is there available to take care of the overall tasks, such as the energy that will be consumed and what are the purpose for which the sensor node is deployed. All those things will be taken care by the task management layer. And we here in this review paper, we are going to compare the basic 7 algorithms which are used for wireless sensor network purpose. First one is the flooding algorithm. We will go through each and every algorithm separately. So flooding, gossiping, and then spin algorithm, leech algorithm, Teen-Aptin algorithm, and Pegasus and GAF algorithm. We are going to compare the 7 algorithms, what purpose which algorithm can be chosen, what is the difficulty in that particular algorithm, then which other algorithm can be chosen. Likewise, an analysis has been made. And coming to the first algorithm, which is the flooding algorithm, in which the data packets will be transmitted to every other neighbor in that particular environment, and the information will be flooded to the entire network by reaching the every neighborhood of a particular node. So what is the main limitation of this particular algorithm is very huge bandwidth will be taken, and because of the replication of packets throughout the network. So it is going to increase the cost of the network. And coming to the next algorithm, which is the gossiping algorithm, which will transmit the data packet to only its neighbor, one particular selected neighbor. It will choose among the multiple neighbors which particular neighbor it can transmit the data. Through that particular neighborhood, it will try to reach to the end node. And here the bandwidth will be comparatively minimized, but also comparatively we will have more bandwidth compared to the other algorithms which I am going to discuss now. Next one is here spin algorithm. In the spin algorithm, the main advantage of this technique is here we are going to use ADV message, request message, and data message.
Sorry to interrupt, dear presenter. You have last 1 minute. Please conclude your presentation.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Here, the ADV is used for advertising the information, and the request information is used separately for requesting, and data is used for separately carrying the data. And coming to the leech algorithm, here the cluster, that is the main advantage of this is low energy is going to be utilized for this leech algorithm. And coming to the Teen and Aptin algorithms, the limitation of this Teen and Aptin algorithm is the nodes doesn't receive the threshold. It won't communicate, which will result in no data transmission to the user. So if the node doesn't receive the threshold level, then the communication will not happen. This is called as the threshold sensitive energy efficient protocols. Coming to the Pegasus, This is the power efficient gathering protocol. When we are going to concentrate on the utilization of the power, then this algorithm can be chosen. And I could compare these algorithms for the particular application. And coming to the directed diffusion and geographic adaptive fidelity, here depending on the geographical location, the full responsibility to monitor and transmit the data to the sink on behalf of that node will be the work of any assigned node. And here it will enhance the lifetime of the network because the energy consumption is very less. So I have now consolidated what is the purpose each algorithm can be used. Flooding and gossiping will have high energy consumption and high bandwidth. Whereas spin and leach algorithms can be used for limiting the flooding and gossiping by using the message request and TDMA based slot transmission respectively. And then clean and ARP-TIN algorithms will be used for when they receive the request from the user alone, they will transmit the information. And coming to the Pegasus, it will minimize the delay and it will enhance the network lifetime. When we are going to for the GAF algorithm, it will minimize the energy consumption and it will enhance the network lifetime. So this can be achieved by this algorithm. Conclusion regarding this paper I want to discuss is the main purpose of these routing algorithms are going to be based on the energy efficiency, network stability, and minimizing the delay. So when a particular algorithm is chosen, we can use for one, we are going to concentrate on one particular factor alone or two particular factors alone. The research is going on to create a highly efficient, low power wireless sensor networks, which will take the advantages of all the algorithms together. Still research is, further research is going on. So here coming to this future research, the concentration is on increasing the throughput of this wireless sensor network with high efficient, low power wireless sensor network for any application it can be chosen. It can be for any smart home environment. It could be for any medical field, or it could be for military applications. Various purposes, wireless sensor networks is going to rule the future era of 5G communication. And these are some of the references which has been taken for wireless sensor networks, and we have consolidated this review paper. Now the forum is open
so
for.
I would like to, so I'm asking you a few questions. And in fact, I'm suggesting you a few points. You have to keep it in mind, right? For your research work, that would help you. I think that would be beneficial for you. So firstly, whenever we do certain research, we want it to be recognized at a social platform, I would say. We want to contribute something to our research work to the society, right? So since 5G technology is not very well established in India, I would suggest you, if you can go for some different types of wireless sensor networks, for example, multimedia WSN or some other kind of networks instead of 5G. And even if you are stick to it, I would say the idea is still very, very vague, right? Instead of going directly for the algorithms and converging yourself to improve the energy of the entire network, I would suggest you look for certain types of specific areas and the kind of implementation that you're going to have further for your work, like establishing the WSN. How would you do it? What kind of simulator or emulator you're going to have, and why you are only focused for any energy efficiency, like improvement of energy. So these are certain points that I would like you to keep it in mind for your research work. Right?
Surely I will consider your suggestions, ma'am. And actually, I am working in the area of long-range communication for wireless sensor networks now. It is LoRa communication. We have in our college established a lab for that separately, and we are working in the particular applications. And in future, in other related conference with your association, in future also we will present the real-time applications lines. And with the real-time data, we could be able to reach you, ma'am. Surely, I appreciate your guidelines, and I am ready to further proceed to have a real-time concentration. And my future research and papers will be in that line. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I think that would increase the impact of your presentation and the work also. All the best. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now I would invite our next presenter, Kika Mukhopadhyay, to present her paper on a review on insulators in a transmission line progress and comparative studies.
Thank you, ma'am.
You may start your presentation, please.
Is it my slide is visible?
Yes.
Good afternoon, all. Today, my topic of presentation is a review on insulators in transmission line, its progress and comparative studies. Now, an insulator maintains distance between lines from ground. This clearance basically depends upon system voltage, safety margin, and contamination. It withstands all kinds of mechanical, electrical, and environment stresses. Now, example of mechanical stresses is compression,
Kika,
dynamic
please
loads.
switch to the work, the exact analysis that you have done. Please move to that slide.
Yeah, ma'am. I have done mainly how the progress happen in the domain of insulation in the transmission line. So there, if we concentrate that whatever the clearance basically depends upon system voltage, safety margin, and contamination. And its basic thing is it should be able to withstand mechanical, electrical, and environmental stresses. So if we come to the electrical stresses, this is basically that system voltage, electric field, etc. Whereas temperature variation, contamination, pouring, ultraviolet ray, these are the example of environmental stresses. Now at different voltage, what I observed at different voltage level, different factors play the dominant role. Like at lower level of voltage, it's mainly mechanical clearance and voltage transmission level corona. This plays the important role. Whereas when the transmission voltage increases, then the concentration of design moves towards the lightning or switching surges. And nowadays, when it's a trend of very high voltage transmission, say of the order of 765 to 1500 kV, that time it has been observed the design concentration has moved to the mainly to the contamination. That is the main design factor. So electrical equipments, how it will perform, that depends mainly upon the characteristics of its dielectric material. So this is an area of constant research. In the year of 1900, if we see the voltage level was 100 kV, whereas now in 2017-18 or
Can you
now,
please switch the slide and come directly to the comparative analysis part?
Yes. So this is the voltage level, it was there. So initially, if I see the progress, then the first generation of insulating material was basically ceramic, porcelain, and all. And example of these are the natural substances like mica, rubber, marble, etc.
Please skip this part, Kika.
These are also
Come
having
to the analytical slide.
Okay,
Yeah.
ma'am. So mainly I have compared it there, the behavior of the ceramics and polymers, like ceramics and all, which is like mica, rubber and all, those are having very low resistivity and having very low breakdown strength. But as I told that nowadays we need to transmit the higher level of energy. So we have moved gradually from the natural substances to the synthetic substances, synthetic insulating material. So that's why polymer came into picture, and that is the second generation of dielectric material. If we compare weight wise, the polymer is having lighter weight compared to the ceramic. It's much heavier, but ceramics are very least shock absorption, whereas polymers is highly shock absorption capability. And ceramic glass insulators, they're prone to vandalism. So at any point of time.
Can you just explain the last two parts, solution performance and frosty climatic condition performance?
Yes. Now, depending upon that which climatic area we are using this insulator in the transmission line, we need to concentrate on the design of the choice of the, I will tell, the insulators. Like for non-hydrophobic and ceramics are non-hydrophobic, and if the where we are installing it, if that there is having lots of environmental issues and all, then their degradation happen much faster. And in that case, basically, we need to go for a coating.
I
of
asked for the
insulating
last 2 points, Kika.
Pol-
I repeat,
pollution,
performance and frosting.
performance and so pollution performance and all, that ceramics and all, their quality degraded very fast with the ceramics, these natural substances, whereas polymers shows much superior performance, because polymer means we can use the dielectric fillers in that, like in polymers, as a filler we can use the polar polymer, which will trap the electrons and which will increase the dielectric strength. Even same as I told that,
As like keeping in mind the environmental situations,
yes,
which one do you suggest would be better from an environmental perspective? Which
even
one
in
would be better?
even in environment perspective, polymer is superior, because its longevity is more. Longevity is much superior. That's why than the ceramics.
What about its degradation?
Degradation?
Will it be
degradation-
harmful more than ceramics to the environment?
Not all polymers, even polymers, as we know, it's having wide range of polymers. So nowadays the trend is going on to find out the suitable which is also environment friendly.
So which have you used for your work? What have you considered for your work?
If you tell it is an analytical paper. So cross-linked polymer, they are having high dielectric strength and all. So few polymer which we can choose, we can do that research where we can go for the environment friendly polymers. It's
Okay,
a
please
wide
come
domain.
to the next slide. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So how another thing is, if the polymer, as you told, the environment friendly, recycling is possible with the polymer.
Kika, so please skip this and come to the next slide.
So these are the polymers where we are keeping inside filler is given. Nano filler is given to increase the breakdown strength. That is the next slide has been done, and a different way, like different scientists has done the research to increase the dielectric breakdown strength of the polymer. Yes, ma'am.
No, you can continue. Like I just want to, I want you to move to the slide where exactly you have done some kind of analysis or some kind of comparison.
I have mainly compared with polymers and ceramics or glass.
So that was the last slide, right?
Then advantages of advantages. Then I have mentioned, highlighted the advantages of the nano dielectric filling inside the polymer, because it's increased resistance by erosion. Resistance increases and all, and that polymer, the problem is polymer degradation happen mainly because of space charge and flashover. These are how the polymers degraded very fast.
Next slide,
so
please.
By using nano dielectrics, we can improve those qualities of the polymers. So this is in a short the application area of the ceramics and glass. Where ceramics and glass we have widely used till now, polymer is rarely used, but gradually polymer is taking the place of those areas and by improving its qualities.
So which application area have you or will you be using for your work?
My work is with the transmission line only, ma'am. I want to see with the
HV transmission line only, because it has it's widely used in that, right?
Yes, ma'am. And mainly from their composite thing, I want to analyze with the simulation.
Okay.
So these are the conclusion. Composite insulators. This is very important component nowadays in energy transmission, and its energy electrical strength can be improved by 9 times. And temperature capability is also more, thermal conductivity also more, breakdown strength also can be increased. Polymer means a wide domain. So as material science has improved considerably last few years, so that impact is coming in the choosing a choice of insulating materials also.
So what about the data and the implementation part of it? How you will be drawing the inferences? What exactly your idea is? What
I want to do the simulation studies of the different composite insulators to check how is its
so have you found out some simulator as of now?
In my mind, there are few softwares. Is there Quickfield, ANSYS? These are the software where work can be done using.
And what about the data?
Data, I think composite from material science, many databases are there. No, we can
So
utilize
there is a
those,
repository and you will get the data
those
from
data.
that.
Yeah, we can find out from there.
Okay, thank you, Kika. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would invite our next presenter, Divya S,
Yes,
for presenting her paper on image feature generation using binary patterns, LBP, SLBP. Please, Divya, you may start your presentation.
yes, thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon. Myself, Divya S. I'm hereby present my research for image feature generation using binary patterns, LBP, SLBP, and GBP under the guidance of my supervisors, Dr. L. Padma Suresh and co-supervisor Dr. Ansamma John towards its international conference on ICT for sustainable development. So this is the outline of my presentation: introduction, literature survey, research gap, objectives, methodologies, results and discussion, conclusion, and references. So first is introduction. Image processing is a pivotal research domain based on mathematical equation, which drew a lot of solutions from machine learning practices and problems of content-based image retrieval system. As we know that image feature extraction plays an important role in every image processing as well as computer vision problems. So here I performed a comparative evaluation of various descriptors that are used to extract the features, that is using LBP, that is local binary pattern, SLBP, significant local binary pattern, GBP, gradient binary pattern, and its effectiveness towards some applications in medical domains such as medical image analysis, object detection, and classification. Moreover, this is implemented and evaluated using some of the brain tumor images collected from the Kaggle as well as Brat's data set. So this is a literature survey. Recently, most of the image processing tasks use feature extractor as texture measures such as mean as well as variance, but this method has some disadvantages that some of the vital information contained in the distribution of the image itself might be lost. And another reason
I would like to interrupt here. Like, I want to ask you one thing. How did
Yes.
you decided on the techniques that you're supposed to use? Like, you have already converged on the kind of techniques that you will be using. So how did you decide on that?
Yeah, conducted mainly trial and error. These are the available feature extractors. So I combined some of the recently available feature extractors for my problem. Actually, my problem is image tumor segmentation, classification, and progress prediction. So this is my pre-processing module.
So have you used it in
Yes.
the
Yes,
current
ma'am.
paper? Okay. So
Yeah,
will you please come to that slide instead of this one?
Yeah, this research
Yeah.
gap, my objectives is to use this of the descriptors for my research work. And I also told that it is validated using some of the brain tumor MRI images. These are the descriptors. First one is LBP, local binary pattern. It is a commonly used descriptor. It has a lot of advantages such as simplicity, computational capability, rotation invariance, graded invariance, etc. And here the features are extracted by comparing the intensity levels of center pixel as well as the neighborhood pixel. And these are the corresponding equation. Based on this, we get an LBP code, and this LBP code is used to extract the features in further classification or progress prediction module. And this method itself has some disadvantages that it does not take into account the difference information. So we didn't get some of the log significance information of the object. And another disadvantage is, even though it is simple, it has some computational complexity in terms of time and space. So I preferred an advanced version of LBP that is called the significant local binary pattern in order to retain the significant information of my brain tumor images. So in this method, the significant character is fused along with this previously proposed LBP feature. And this is the corresponding equation. So first one is the LBP feature extraction equation. In that, SLBP is fused in order to obtain the significant information of the object. And another feature descriptor is gradient binary pattern. So here gradient binary pattern, that is GBP descriptor, describes individual pixel of the gradient by using various directions of the pixel. But in case of SLBP and LBP, here the individual pixel of the individual pixel is described by the intensity level of various pixel direction. So in order to compute this GBP pattern, I used two 2D masking diagonal directions and two 1D mask in horizontal as well as vertical direction. And this is the corresponding equation. And by applying this GBP, there is some prerequisite. That means pixel intensities of the input MRI image should be normalized in the range of 0 to 1 before computing the gradient. Unlike LBP, GBP code can be any integer which lies between 0 to 1. And finally, this histogram GBP values can be used to evaluate the features of the input image. And this is the results and discussion. And this
So have you, like, how have you implemented it? Or
yes, ma'am. I implemented. This is my first module. I
no,
combined.
I'm just
my
asking
SLBP.
you, how have you implemented it?
I implemented in Python.
Okay.
I collected some of the images from Brad's dataset and also verified using some of the data collected from nearby hospital called Pushpagiri Research Center. All
right. So please come to the conclusion slide.
Yeah, these are the results of these individual descriptors. I already solved that. For this experimental analysis, I collected some of the images from Kaggle. And the next is some of the applications. So Alfin et al. Proposed this LBP feature to extract some of the features in histopathological images, and later SPM is used for the classification. And another work which is done by Feng et al., which extracted the textual features of pedestrian using LBP. And another work, So et al. Extracted the features of the image using gradient binary pattern, which is an advanced version along with weighted Hawk. And in another paper, Jing et al., he used feature extraction in this human detection model using this advanced feature of LBP. And this is a conclusion. I performed the feature extraction with the combination of these descriptors, and I got an accuracy of 98% for my tumor classification as well as progress prediction module. And this is the future enhancement. Here I took some of the pre-operated MRI images and corresponding post-operated MRI images, and my own segmentation, the tumorous part is segmented, and then features are extracted using significant local binary pattern in order to grab the significant characteristics of the features in that image along with gradient binary pattern, so that I got an accuracy of nearly 98% in my research work, and it is now given to publication in one of the Elsevier paper, and it is in review process under right now. Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, yes. So, all right, like, do you have something more to share? Okay, only the references. All right.
Yeah, no,
so what's the reason do you think is behind the higher accuracy rate of your work? What exactly do you think the reason can be? And have you,
yeah, there are some.
You have in mind comparing it with some other existing, algorithms and techniques to check out how like sustainable it is, and plus what's the size of the data that you've taken? So these two questions are there.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, I asked you something. I asked you two different questions, so I hope you got it, isn't it?
Sorry, ma'am. Can you please repeat the question?
I am just asking, did you, compared it with other techniques and algorithms to have confidence regarding the work? Like 98% is a pretty high rate,
Yeah, 98%.
You can't say it like, it takes a lot to prove it that it is giving you a 92%.
In my classification, I already compared with
the and one more question. I just want to know about the size of the data. What data set have you taken?
The first, for my classification, I collected the data which consists of 3064 tumorous images. Then I do some augmentation techniques to make it as 27,000 plus images to get such a great accuracy. And one of the difficulties why I encountered during my implementation is I implemented this using deep network, that is GAN. It took 2 to 3 days for training itself.
Yeah, right. It does take it. All right, Divya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now I would call our next presenter, Parth Kapadia, to present his paper on a novel approach for forecasting account receivables. Parth,
Okay.
please, you may start your presentation.
Okay, I hope my screen is visible to everyone and my audio is clearly audible.
Yeah, your voice is audible and screen is visible.
Okay, so data is one of the most important thing of future. And when this data is related to finances, it becomes even more important. Hello and a warm welcome to everyone who is present here. Today, I, Parth Kapadia, would be presenting my paper, A Novel Approach on Forecasting Account Receivables. So, what is account receivables? One of the main questions that comes to our mind is what is account receivables? So, it is a common practice between companies that when a company provides some services to other company, then some of the amount it pays directly and some of the amount is given on credit. So this amount which is given on credit is termed as account receivables, and it is a very regular process in a company, and it is usually done. So this is a diagram of what actually happens when a customer buys something from the company. So for moving further, what problem we face and what are we trying to solve? So we saw some data and we came to know that there is much problem in account receivables. People give amount on account receivables but are not able to recover it. So to solve this problem, and one need to identify how much account receivables will it get in a particular time. So company do have their funds, but they are not able to identify how much fund they would be getting. So this we are going to solve using predictive forecasting, which is like a classical forecasting, but we use the past trends and other cycles. And according,
Parth, I would like to ask certain direct questions to you. I'm so sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you in between. So have you implemented your work?
yes, ma'am.
You started doing that. How are you doing that?
Sure. So we have considered before implementation, we considered exactly 3 methods, because when we had
No, I want you to answer specifically what have you used for the implementation of your work, right? And then I'll ask you next question, what different classifications or different techniques or models you have used for it. And thirdly, is this your research work? Is it a
Yes,
part
ma'am.
of your research work
yes, ma'am.
or
This
the
is-
entire research work? All right. So you please tell me how have you done the implementation and why have you used only these techniques for comparison and come up with a new technique of your own?
Yes, sure. So how have we implemented it? So we were given the data of a company. We worked for a company, Selfin Technologies Private Limited, and they have provided us with the data. And we have used Python, native Python, and some libraries in Python to achieve it. And for using these 3 models, we have tried it on several models, and we found out that these 3 are giving the best outputs. And we also researched it on for other research papers, and we came to know that for forecasting problems, random forest gives good output as a classification. And logistic regression is always one of the favorite models among researchers.
How many techniques have you used before converging to these 3? And what were the basic criterias, or I would say parameters, common among these techniques?
So we first identified the problem. We had to break down the problem into pieces. That we have to identify how much account receivable we will be getting. So, and we had the transaction data set. So we identified that this transaction data set can be converted, that whether this transaction will be completed in the current month or in the next month. So we did 3 categories, and in each month we identified that whether it will be completed in this month, in next month, next month. So
Parth, the question is, you are talking about these 3 machine learning models, right?
no, ma'am.
You are saying that machine learning models considered a logistic regression model, random forest, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ensemble. So you're talking about these 3. So my question was, how many other models did you try implementing work before converging to these 3, and why, and what were the common parameters among them? What made you think that these can be the best suited ones?
Okay. So we tried other 4 to 5 models, SGD classifier, and we tried all the classification models that are available. Because
उनमें क्या commonality थी, कुछ बता सकते हो? कोई पैरामीटर्स या कुछ ऐसा जो आपके वर्क से रिलेटेड हो और आपको लगे कि यही मॉडल्स में वो चीज मिल सकती है? Was there some base of it?
The main thing which we focused on was our accuracy, and not just accuracy on the dataset which we provide, but on the live dataset that is of the company. So all the models, they were giving good output on actual dataset, that is the dataset on which it was trained. But to give a proper output on dataset which is live, that was one of the challenge, and that's when these 3 models performed well.
All right. So the kind of work that you have done, how many people do you think are required for this work? Like, are you the only research scholar who has taken up this work, or is it some kind of collaborative work that you
We are a team of 5 people, and we collaborated with the company Selfin Technologies Private Limited. They provided us with the data, and we have a mentor from Sarojini College of Engineering and Technology. His name is Professor Bintu Kadiwala.
So you think that it's justifiable to have a team of 5 people to implement this work? Do you really think it requires so many people for this proposal?
Ma'am, when we collect the work together, it may be turned out to be less. But when we are actually doing this, even for 5 of us, it took 3 to 4 months for us to complete just the research part and identify which model we want to use. Right now, we know that we have to use these models. But before that, we need to identify from all the models that which model will be suitable for our problem. And to identify that, we have to train all those models. And for each model, we have trained around 9 models for each of the models. So
is it a kind of collaborative project that you've taken up? Because I don't think it's a kind of PhD work, some like doctorate work.
So, ma'am, it was a part of our internship work when we are working at Selfin Technologies Private Limited.
Right. So you are trying to have a kind of academic exposure of your work.
Yes, ma'am.
So that is why you have come here. Yeah. So that
Yes,
was the question popping up my mind. Anyway, so you just please come directly to the inferences part. That's it.
Okay. So this was the result that we attained. In logistic regression model, we did not get the exact accurate output because logistic regression model finds linearity among data. So we use random forest model. But once again, one of the problem was which is always there in random forest is it cannot handle properly redundant data. So we used ensemble method, and we used k-means clustering first and then classified it using random forest classifier. So it gave us a really good output of around 92% on average. And for further for where this work can be used, so this work is actually used by the company right now, and in one of their product, and they determine how much. So they provide this to the clients that how much account receivable will be closed in current month or next month. So that's the concluding part of our presentation.
So do you think there is some future scope of your work?
For this work, I don't think that we can do anything future, because if we had any idea, we would have implemented it right now.
Right now you can't do that, because future work is for future, right? You have to consider a few situations which are not there right now, but they may come in future, right? So if the size of data increases, or maybe the work pattern differs, so in that case you can always extend your work. Thank you, Parth.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now I would like to invite our next presenter, is Gitanjali. Her paper presenting on mapping and change detection of mangrove using remote sensing and Google Earth engines.
Hello.
Hello.
Just a minute. I'll just share my screen. Can you see my screen, ma'am?
Yes, please start your presentation.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon to one and all. I am Mrs. Gitanjali Mahamunkar, and I'm here to present my paper on mapping and change detection of mangroves using satellite remote sensing and Google Earth Engine, a case study. My co-authors are Dr. Kivlekar and Dr. Netak from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Technological University, Lonere. In this presentation, I'll talk about our case study objectives, literature review that we carried out for the same, and then the methodology used. Later, I'll be discussing the result and conclude with the future scope in this area.
So
In this case study,
please directly come to your methodological, like methodology slide, I
Sure,
would say.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Just a minute. Okay, ma'am, in this, what we have done is we have used Landsat, just a minute, Landsat 8 satellite image for the year 2019 and Landsat 7 image for 2009. And what we have done is we have pre-processed these images for cloud, for removing the atmospheric turbulence that has caused when we acquire these image. And I have also used a public domain data set, and using various spectral indices like vegetation indices. I have like created the training and testing samples and trained my random forest algorithm model for classification. It gave me these images where mangroves were mapped on in the Raigad district of Maharashtra, and by using the built-in functionalities, functions available in Earth Engine code editor, I calculated the area of mangrove extent in square kilometer for the two respective years, that is 2009 and 2019, and found the difference over the decade in square kilometers. And
so what have you used for your work? Which tool you have used?
I have used Google Earth Engine code editor, ma'am, and in that I have.
And how have you used them in a collaborative manner, joint manner? Like from where the input is coming and from how
yeah, ma'am, there's
the
Google Earth Engine code editor has this asset from where you can import the data set. Okay, and in the code I implemented, like we can import the images that you have downloaded on your machine. Or rather,
so did you find
actually,
some kind of limitation while doing this? Because the kind of output that you're receiving through it after making changes in it, did you face some kind of limitations initially or later on?
Yeah, actually what happened is when I was training this model, I was creating the samples, and in this actually the images that are there for Landsat images, they are 30-meter resolution. For a better resolution, we can go in for the private data sources that are available, but they are quite costly. This is a actually free of cost this thing. But so once I got the data set, public domain data set, I could map mangroves more easily in the Raigad district, and then by training it, like I took about more than 360 samples of mangroves and non-mangroves for the year 2019.
How did you decide on the kind of samples that you're going to take? Did you do some kind of stress testing or some kind of
Yeah, what I did is I used vegetation indices. Like in the coding, what I did, I by using the vegetation indices, I could identify where are the probable mangroves. Like, ma'am, actually mangroves are found in the coastal region. And so by using the indices, I could map the possible areas, and then I used to zoom it and then identify where are the possible and comparing it with the data set available, the public domain data set. I
No,
provided.
I'm talking about the kind of the number of images that you've taken. You were saying that it's around like 350 or 360, right?
No,
So
these are not
yeah.
the images that I'm saying. Ma'am, there is a, here you can see there is a geometry tool.
Yeah, imports.
Imports. Here using this tool, we can interactively collect samples, like you using polygons and
you
all.
can, but
yeah,
there has to be some kind of limit on that.
No,
How did you limit it?
Ma'am, actually, can I share a demo? Means I have the I can share the screen with the where I can show the coding part, and I can tell you how actually you can sample them out. Actually, there are image collection is a kind of property available in Earth Engine code editor. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can just use this point marker to mark the
to mark it on the image.
on the image, and then it from it acquires those samples automatically, ma'am. And then these samples,
that's a kind of randomization, right?
Yeah. And
so you just have to be specific, like it's random, right? This is what I wanted to you have done some kind of randomization. Right?
Randomization.
All right, so you can move ahead, right? Come to the next slide.
Yeah, then ma'am, by collecting these samples for 2019 and splitting them into 70-30 ratio, I got this accuracy, validation overall accuracy as 94.5 in case of 2019. Data and training overall accuracy is 98.4, and kappa coefficient value. And these samples are for the 2009 data. Again, I did the same way. I calculated validation overall accuracy and training overall accuracy.
So did you compare the same number of samples for both the years? Was there some kind of I would say leveling or some kind of check on the kind of I would say like you take fixed or equivalent parameters, right? Complementing each other. So how did you do that?
Ma'am, what I did is I collected almost 182 to 184 samples. 184 samples for just a minute. 184 samples for 2019, and almost that 182 samples for 2009. And I found these accuracy. I got the result that I got in square kilometers was this 62.3 in 2009, and in 2019 it was 120.5. And I compared my results with the Forest Survey of India report 2019. In that they have claimed that the 2009 it was 62 square kilometers. My case study gave the result as 62.37, and they have said that in 2019 it is 120.97, whereas I got the result as 120.56. So it is, these numbers are quite close, so it shows that
they are.
So it shows that my model has given a quite like accurate result. So
pretty accurate. So please come to the conclusion side.
Conclusion. So the overall accuracy, if you've seen from the training data, is significantly higher than the calculated validation data, because random forest is fit to the training data, and the accuracy estimated from training data is an overestimate, as the estimate from the validation data shows that the estimated accuracy on unknown data is lower. And using Google Earth Engine and remote sensing is more effective than conducting ground surveys, because we can reach inaccessible areas where mangroves are present using remote sensing. And also the temporal spatial analysis is made simpler by the Google Earth Engine. In future, we can use deep learning algorithms instead of machine learning algorithms, as some of the deep learning algorithms such as convolutional neural networks are trained to identify and extract the best features from the images. And also that if we want to study the applicability of this implementation, these methods can be used by government agencies responsible for conservation and protection of mangroves and to monitor their changes that are occurring.
Are you a research scholar, Gitanjali?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
And my research work is
Yeah.
basically to implement the deep learning algorithms, but this was my starting work, ma'am. And now
Yeah, because that's too very less as compared to the kind of research work that we do.
yeah.
So
I
that's
like
what I was
my
asking.
main work is
Yeah.
deep learning for geospatial data analysis, and this is one of the module. Means I have to
Yeah.
implement more such like applicability of deep learning for geospatial data analysis, and this is just one of the work that I'm proposing to do.
All
Like in
right.
deep
Yeah.
learning.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Gitanjali.
Thank you, ma'am. These are the references, ma'am.
Move ahead. Now I would like to invite our next presenter, Dhara, for presenting her paper on comparative study to perform tweets news classification using big data analytics for predicting stock market price movement.
Yes, madam.
So Dhara, is this a kind of analytical paper, or you have done something? You've implemented something?
Yes, ma'am. I have just implemented the model using the Apache Spark. It is nothing but a big data framework.
But what exactly the platform and
Basically,
the tools that
madam,
you
big
use?
data framework basically require the high amount of the resources, like they require the 10 to 12 GB minimum RAV and high resources available. But
Please
my
come to the exact, implementation part, slide showing the work, the exact work that you've done.
Yes. This is my proposed model. And for that, I'm using the PySpark model. And PySpark is nothing but an open source library, which is compatible with the big data framework Apache Spark, and in which also available the Spark NLP. It is nothing but a natural language processing library, which is also compatible with the Python, as well as MLlib is one of the library that is also compatible with the Apache.
So there is just one question, Dhara, keeping in mind the proposed model. So you've written data collection, Twitter and users. So were you able to, extract data from the Twitter server, or what? Like what exactly the mechanism was?
Yes, madam. Right now, I'm just using the TweePy for collecting the Twitter data, and for collecting the news data, I'm using the Money Control website and CNBC official website to gathering the stock market data, because my PhD research work is related to the stock market movement prediction, and for that I'm using the different different structurized data, like a structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, and then they all data are gathered and put it into the one platform and make a structurized data. Then after we apply the different natural language processes, as well as then after I apply the machine learning or deep learning algorithm, and finally predict the stock movement prediction, whether the stock price go to the up or down. So this is my first research paper for my PhD work. And for that, I'm just using the two kind of data, Twitter and news, both are the unstructured data. And my concept is to implement not the normal Python library, but a big data framework is introduced with this, and Spark natural language processing, that will be Spark NLP used for the sentiment analysis. Based on that, I just
data was related with the
only stock market,
like the stock market price movement.
Yes, only the data relevant to the stock market, and stock relevant tweet and stock relevant news will be gathered from these two platforms. And for the data processing and feature transformation, in which Spark NLP, these are the inbuilt estimator and transformer are available like a normalizer, tokenizer, stopper, remover, stemmer, to convert the string to index to string, right? Then after we are applying the 3 feature extraction technique like a TF-ID, count vectorize, and word2vec. Based on that, we decide which feature extractor gives the best performance. And lastly, we applied the 3 classification method: logistic regression, random forest, and Naive Bayes. And I have checked the which machine learning algorithm give the best accuracy. Finally, we check compare the 3 feature extraction technique as well as 3 classification method, and result will be displayed which method, which feature extraction give the best output. So this is nothing but my first phase of model. And this is nothing but a single execution of Spark NLP pipeline for our model. This is madam, generally we have to do the work in a part, but Spark NLP provide the execution of the whole model in a single execution. And for that, we can do the NLP process like a tokenization, normalization, stopper, remover, stemmer, finisher. This is a part of the NLP, as well as if you want to perform the feature extraction, this is also possible in a single execution. And this one is a classification part. So in one slot of execution, we build a Spark NLP pipeline, and we finally get the output. So this is my basic model, as well as I have also built the Spark NLP pipeline for the same work. And to applicable methodology, and we can also say that it is nothing but a research flow. For that, we have just collect the data that is only relevant to the stock market, in which I want to just take the top 100 BSE company listed in a BSE based on the market capitalization. But right now, I'm just implement the work on the sample data. Later on that, I have to implement the work with the last 5 to 7 years data, whether it will be give the perfect result or not. For the data processing and feature transformation, I have already said that I am using the Spark NLP, because right now data is generated more and more. So the normal process is not work, and for that we have to implement the big data concept, and big data in which Hadoop framework is also available. But with to work with the Hadoop, we will require the high amount of resources. And if we want to work with the Python and big data for framework, so the Apache Spark framework gives the flexibility, and it will be open source Python compatible with the and it will be also provide the library relevant to work with the big data, and that is possible by the Apache Spark. As I have told, these are the feature extraction and the pre-processing techniques. For the feature extractor technique, TF-ID, count vectorize, and word2vec is all applicable. The classification method, logistic regression, random forest, and Naive Bayes is applied. If we talk about the result, this is nothing but a comparative analysis of the sentiment classification using the 3 different classifier and 3 feature extraction technique with respect to the accuracy. So first one show that the logistic regression with the TF-ID with the 100 feature, it will be give the 72% accuracy. If we increase the number of the feature in a TF-ID, it will give the more accuracy, like 72 to 86%, right? If we use the count vectorize, it will give the 86%, word2vec 86%. The result also shows that the all classifier method with the different feature extractor, but count vectorize and TF-ID give the same accuracy for all the classification methods.
Tara, what made you select only these 4?
Sorry, madam.
What made you select only these 4 for your work?
Because right now I'm working on the initial phase. First I work with these 4 techniques, and then after later on that I have also.
No, the question is, you have used classifiers, right? You
Yes,
have used some feature extraction accordingly. So
Yes.
my idea is to ask you, what made you finalize only these, classifiers and feature extraction for your work?
Because madam, I have not only worked with the statistical data to predict the stock movement, because there are lots of statistical or technical indicator available to predict the stock market movement. but this is the only technical parameter. But I want to also pass the one of the sentiment parameter with the technical parameter to give the better accuracy. Somehow, if we say that only compare the last 10 to 15 days stock price for the specific stock, but if we pass the sentiment score, like whether the news or tweet relevant to the stock is positive, negative, or neutral, that will be affected to the actual stock price or not. That's why I have just one phase is the for the stock for the sentiment analysis, and I get the sentiment score of the tweets or news data, and that data will be to pass to the technical indicator, and that technical indicator and sentiment score the very better accuracy for the stock movement prediction.
Okay, please come to the concluding
Yes,
slide.
madam. This is a performance. And last conclusion, in which I have conclude that only the 3 classifier we have used in this research, but the related classification method as well as in supervised machine learning algorithm. But we are for the next planning for neural network and deep learning algorithm can be applied, and it will be give the better performance. That is my next research work and next paper in the Anupma channel.
Okay, thank you, Dhara.
Thank you so much. These are the references which are used in this paper. Thank you so much, madam.
Now we can call our next presenter, Ashish Sharma, for presenting his paper on the 3D face mark recognition minimization for spreading COVID-19 and enhanced security.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Ashish, you may please start your presentation.
Yeah. Yes, I want to share my screen. All of you are able to see my screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to present my work here. Thank you. Now, this is my agenda: abstract, introduction, methodology, discussion, and discussion about FDS model. Here, in this presentation, I want to show one thing. I created one model, and I took one model which is predefined, and I use the word user defined, which I created, and I use predefined, which is already with the already developed. The already developed model name is VGG16, and my model name is FDS. So nowadays we know very well, all of us, we suffer with the COVID-19 situation. So my model is based on to minimize the manual care about the detection of the face mask for the people. And second way, this model, if we train to make a security enhancement for anywhere, like your hospitals, schools, your malls, anywhere, you can use this model in both ways. Now the methodology part is, in this methodology, I have 2 convolution neural network deep learning framework recognition models. Number 1, design and implement a new user defined model. This is done by me with AI technology with deep learning concepts. And second one is discussion about the predefined VG16 model. So this is the algorithm for my model, which I have created. This is for face detection model. I use TensorFlow, Keras, NumPy, Matplot, and confusion matrix. Here for image data collection, then classification with binary classification, with mask or without mask. I divide the images into the trained batches, valid batches, and test batches. Here we use the filters. These filters, activation filter, ReLU, and padding same, maximum pooling, 2D images, and dense layer with activation softmax layer.
Ashish sir, I would just interrupt you. I want
Yeah.
to ask one thing. How close or how different do you think your model is as compared to the existing models, and what
Yes.
made you, think
Definitely.
about it? Yeah.
Definitely, I
So
will.
please, yeah. So
Within
please come
2
to
minutes. Yeah.
that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Here, I have taken the data set from the Kaggle, and in this data set, I use 1315 images for training, 142 images for testing, and 194 images for validation. And in this model, we can see here where we have mask, it is giving the result 1, and where we don't have mask like this one, so this figure image, it is showing 0. So the first column is showing 1 where we have mask and 0 where we don't have mask. So it is categorizing clearly. Now we have used this model by creating this model we created by using this convolution ReLU, pooling, and here fully connected layers, then softmax layer for binary classification and all. So we can see in user defined model, we have the parameters 775,778, and these all parameters are trained. These all parameters are trained. No parameter is non-trainable. In this, we get the accuracy 98% for for the model, and validation accuracy is also 98% here within 5 steps, within 5 repetition steps only. Loss is very less, 3% only, and validation loss is also about 3%. It is first one is 3, then 7, and it is 98 to 97% accuracy as validation and 100% accuracy for the model. Now we come to the point. This is our prediction steps. In prediction steps, I get all the work after running the model. We get all the work is 100% because 1 is the accuracy here. So we get all the images with mask. And with the confusion matrix, we can understand with mask, it is accepting 96% accuracy without normalization. And without mask, it is also getting a 95% accuracy. Now come to the next model, then I will conclude the difference. In the next model, VGG16 model, this model we cannot execute without internet connection. That model, our model, you can integrate without internet connection. You can execute the model without internet, but this model should be required internet. And here, when we come to this model is first 2 convolution layer, then max pooling, then 2 convolution, 3 convolution max pooling is like that. And here you can see the parameters is 134,268,738. If we are taking this parameter, these train only 8,194, and non-trainable parameters are like this. So you can see how many parameters are using without training. But in our model, we are using all the parameters with training. We can see here non-trainable parameters not left, but here it is left too much. Then we can see the accuracy also here 99%. But what is the difference here? Okay, accuracy is same, but the difference is time. If you see, this model executes and taking very much time to execute all the things. 954 seconds, 819 seconds, 754 seconds, 753 seconds, 753 seconds. And here you can see 178 seconds, 178 seconds, 178 seconds, 178 seconds, and 182 seconds. If you calculate it, the time is taking very much to execute this model, this VGG16 predefined model. So here the accuracy is nice, and we can see this accuracy with mask, we are getting 96% with VGG16 predefined model and 96% with our model as well. So we are very near and we are on the same step. And here in our model, we have 95% accuracy, and in VGG16 model, we have 96% accuracy. So accuracy is very near to each other. It is not like that. It is very much difference, and we cannot use this model as well.
Ashish sir, what are the limitations of your model according to you?
For my model,
Yeah.
right now my model is working for supervised learning. So in future, it will be work with unsupervised learning as well. And I will maintain it with the reinforcement model.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And here we have used the Gaussian data set, and with the help of Gaussian image filter, we can see this is the image, and we use the Gaussian image filter here. After Gaussian image filter, we can see how much accuracy we are increasing. Actually, this work I did here, this work with not the filtered image. This is not filtered image. Without filter, we can see there is very much nuisance, very much not clear, the mask. But if I use the Gaussian noise filter, then we get the edge detection very clearly. These all edges are clearly detected, and model will be more accurate, and model will give the more accurate result to detect the mask and non-mask features.
So do you have some plans of getting the model patent for a model?
Yes, I have plan to be execute in a real-time mode.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think I've got a fair idea of things. You've already clearly explained it.
Thank you.
I think we should end it on this note. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks for your time. Okay.
Pleasure.
And we had done our all presentation. I sincerely thank our author for their presentation in this session, and also thank you all participants for being a part of this session. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificate through email within 2 working days, and all the papers have already forwarded to the Springer. The publication will be live within 5 to 6 months. Kindly cooperate with the team of ICT 4SD. Now I would like to thank you, our session chair. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for everyone to give an opportunity to show so many varied, fields of research, and all the best to everyone. Thank you so much for having me once again. All the best to everyone.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, everyone. And I kindly request to everyone to turn on their cameras for a quick snapshot for making this conference more memorable.
I'm so sorry, I won't be able to do that, Richa, since I've logged in through the university system, and it doesn't have an inbuilt camera. So
okay, ma'am, no problem.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, all of you. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.